开始，跑跑时间。
没关系，今天有风。
Benvenuto a Ponticelli. Welcome to the easternmost quarter of Naples on a piping hot summer's day. It's day 3 of the 30th Summer Universiade and the penultimate day of artistic gymnastics action here at the Pala Vesuvio. Yesterday, Japan made it double gold in the team competitions as their women's squad took a dramatic victory by a single mark over the Russian Federation, having trailed until the very last rotation. The score, 108.45 to 107.45. Yes, it really was that close. Their male counterparts had a victory of almost 6 marks over Chinese Taipei the day before. All of that is pointing to a very buoyant Japanese team indeed. And now it's the turn of the all-around competitions, the individual gymnasts competing on the 6 men's apparatuses and the 4 women's pieces. And we'll begin with the men's all-around final. The women's competition will start at around about 6:30 p.m. local time. So first and foremost, our attention will go on this men's final and the top 18 eligible gymnasts from qualification. They will be competing for the top prize in all-around individual gymnastics at the Summer Universiade. And it's the 30th edition of this wonderful competition. Its history is extensive, goes all the way back to the first World Student Games in Paris in 1923. But officially the first Universiade, founded by the Fédération Internationale du Sport Universitaire, took place in 1949, right here in Italy, in the city of Turin. We are just waiting for the gymnast to be summoned out onto the field of play and the all-around competition to start here at the Pala Vesuvio. One thing is certain, it is the Japanese men that are very much leading the way. Top qualifier Kazuma Kaya, he was extraordinary, not just in qualification but in the team competition. He was just such a crucial part of Japan's operation. And yes, he was fighting obviously for individual glory in terms of getting into the competition as the top all-around qualifier, but his overall team performance was just absolutely sensational as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, the organizing committee of the 30th Summer Universiade Napoli 2019 welcomes you to Pala Vesuvio. Today you can look forward to all-around final artistic gymnastic men. Signore e signori, il comitato organizzatore della 30ª Universiade estiva Napoli 2019 vi dà il benvenuto al Pala Vesuvio per la finale all around di ginnastica artistica maschile.
And so out onto the field of play come the gymnasts taking part in this men's all-around final. will it be glory for Japan? They have got the top two performers from qualification, Kazuma Kaya, Kakeru Tanegawa. They really are superbly positioned to take full advantage. But what of the Russian Federation? Can they come through and snatch glory in some way? In the qualification process, Kazuma Kaya was the top performer, 86.6. Kakeru Tanegawa was behind him, 84.9. Then his brother Wataru in third place, but not eligible to go through. Therefore, Lee Chi-kai, fourth strongest in qualifications, effectively our third best performer. Kirill Prokopiev of the Russian Federation, Ivan Stretovic rounding off that top group of gymnasts. They'll be joined by Andrea Russo of Italy, who was the seventh strongest in qualification. So that's the top group. Russo, Kaya, Tanegawa, Prokopiev, Stretovic, Lee. And they will be starting on the floor exercise and working as expected in the Olympic order of apparatuses and finishing on the horizontal bar. These the gymnasts that will be participating in the second group and starting on the pommel horse as a result.
Martino Morosi, Switzerland. Antoine Borello, France. Michael Ton, Australia. And Ivan Tikhonov, Azerbaijan.
There are some gymnasts in this second group that could really cause a few problems here and there. Particularly interesting that we're now looking at the third group of gymnasts who are starting on the still ring. So we'll come back to that second group in just a moment. The third group has got the two gymnasts from France in there who were absolutely deadlocked on 79.35, Borello and Mermet, in the qualification process. But back to that second group, and in there is the likes of Milad Karimi of Kazakhstan. He was the 8th strongest qualifier. Definitely has potential to fight his way further up the order. Switzerland were due to be represented by two gymnasts in this final, but Marco Volta has pulled out. Consequently, into the qualification comes Su Ping Chen of Chinese Taipei. He was the 23rd strongest performer, the second reserve, effectively.
Siamo felici che vogliate fare e condividere le vostre foto, ma per la sicurezza degli atleti vi preghiamo.
Andrea Russo had a very good competition. He was fourth in the team event. Saw Marcos Arrogerio, his teammate, watching on. Stefano Patron, also part of that Italian team that finished in fourth position. He was 10th overall in qualification, but Russo 7th, so certainly a good bet to cause some problems. Lee Chi-kai, the fourth best team silver medalist in the competition yesterday. He is the reigning all-around gold medalist from the recent Asian Championships in Mongolia. Quality gymnasts everywhere one chooses to look, and certainly hope that you are choosing to look at this men's competition and are looking forward with great anticipation to all of the action. So we see Lee Seung-min of the Republic of Korea going through his final warm-up process. Great to have your company wherever in the world you join us from. Ollie Hogben here in the Pala Vesuvio, bringing you the action from artistic gymnastics at Napoli 2019. There, Kakeru Tanegawa, the gymnast of the moment, really, in terms of the Japanese scene. Won the all-around Japanese Championships, or rather the All-Japan Japanese Championships back in April. Went on to also win the NHK Cup. But it was his more experienced teammate, Kazuma Kaya, who was very much the focal point of everyone's attention in the team final. He was just superb, 86.6 his score. Gymnasts from all around the world, a familiar figure to many of you, even Tikhonov, from Azerbaijan. He participated in the European Championships in Szczecin, back in Poland a few months ago now. No danger really of rain this time of year in Naples. It is most glorious weather indeed. So we begin with the competition and a look at Kazım Kaya. Where better a place to start than with his floor exercise. Kaya scored 14.8 on floor. Outstanding display, and so he begins.
Rings, Ukraine, Vladislav Riko.
This is an exhibition at the moment. Oh, what a start. What a start from Kazım Kaya. That was a glorious floor exercise. Well, he doesn't look like he's dipped in the slightest following the day of rest after the team competition. Just marvellous. I mean, so steady in his landings, power and amplitude in his tumbling work. Really was just a delightful display. The execution is going to be surely very crisp indeed. To be a high evaluation from the judges for this. And there's complexity to what he does. Links different aspects of the tumbling work. Keeps nice form in the twists, only releases the legs and separates the feet at the last possible moment. Yes, why not smile after a start like that? And it really does set the tone. And your top qualifier comes out with the first routine and absolutely secures it in that way. Now, how close is Kaya going to get to that 14.8 that he scored in the team competition? We're going to head over to the pommel horse and have a look at Stefano Patron. This is the second group of gymnasts in the qualification. Patron, the 10th strongest 20-year-old from Venezia. Part of the Junior European Championship squad in 2016. Nice position here as he attacks this routine. It's all very smooth. Just needs to watch the leg separation a touch. And that's gone a little in the Russian vendor swing, but he's rescued it back well. On the piked side now, getting quite close to those handles. A few brushes coming here and there. But he's fought his way through the routine well and starts his campaign impressively indeed. Stefano Patron off to a good start. Just as the routine went on, he did just a touch run the risk of hemorrhaging quite a few execution marks. Started very well, and he didn't fall into the trap of that leg separation getting worse in the Russian. Now, meanwhile, Kazuma Kaya has a score of 14.45 for his floor exercise. 5.8 difficulty score. He's down a touch by almost 0.4 from his mark in qualification. Now, the nature of Kaya's lead in the qualification process, having such an advantage, almost a couple of marks, is that we're not going to get ourselves too concerned about that unless it happens on the next piece. He drops a little bit here and there, and then it'll be time to start talking about how Kakeru Tanagawa is doing in terms of whether he can advance his scores. And one thing about Tanagawa that's worth noting is that he was a little low on the pommel horse in qualification. He's got ground he can make up there. Now, Kirill Prokopiev of the Russian Federation has scored a 14.8 on floor. That's the strongest display we've had so far in this competition. To Andrea Russo, the Italian gymnast, had a 14.05 for this piece in qualifying, was the 7th best overall. He's in this top group of 6 by virtue of the 2 per nation limit, so Japan are only able to send 2 of those top 3 through.
Rings, Martino Morosi, Switzerland.
A developing and improving gymnast, Andrea Russo. Lives in Rome, and he is a student of an undergraduate degree in accountancy. His club coaches, Gigi Roccini and Marco Massara, will be so delighted to see what he's doing internationally. He was a little low coming out of that pike, but he stabilised it well. He's got excellent leg strength. Competed a little bit at some of the World Cup events as well. So he's bolstering his international experience year by year. This was his 2nd strongest piece in qualification. He had a very good horizontal bar routine. But this wasn't far off it. Confirmation of the 13.1 for Stefano Patron on pommel horse. Patron, one of the gymnasts in that 2nd group of performers, but our attention, as you would expect at the moment, focused very much on this 1st group, particularly because we are about to enjoy the work of Lee Chi-kai.
Pommel horse, Luis Porco, Brazil. Rings, Antoine Morello, France.
14.05 once more for Russo, exactly as he delivered in qualification. He's going to need to pick up something on the pommel horse, where he was a 13.05, and hope that others lose something on the pommel horse. Not much chance of this gentleman doing it, though. But still a long way to go in the competition. And it begins here on the floor for Lee Chi-kai, gymnast from Chinese Taipei, who is the reigning Asian all-around champion. He was the 4th best overall in qualification, Lee, with 13.85 for his floor exercise. As you would expect, he had a massive score on the pommel horse. Just a little move backwards on that landing, but nothing too concerning. Flares everywhere you look with him. And the air flare as well brings that lovely little flourish up. Massive strength, real elegance as well. It's just such a fantastic story, Lee Chi-kai. He started performing gymnastics moves as a child to attract customers to his family's vegetable stall in the local market. Ended up being every aspect of his life, dominating what he does. And what he does very well indeed. Lee Chi-kai gets his campaign underway on the floor. We've seen a very good start on the floor exercise from this top group of gymnasts. Most impressive indeed. He will know, of course, that to come is the piece where he'll be expecting to open up a bit of an advantage on the chasing pack. And although the overall 4th strongest qualifier, he's got to be considered to be a favourite to get onto the podium by virtue of having the absence of Wataru Tanegawa in the competition. Largely speaking, it was a very steady performance. I think it was, for me, better than his qualification. The question is whether the judges will concur with that, and if so, to what extent. Oh, it's a lot better than his qualification. 14.25 to a 13.85. So that's a really important jump of around about 0.4 for Lee Chi-kai. Now, the sort of thing we're interested in is that Kai has dropped by a 0.4. Lee's gone up by a 0.4. Calculators at the ready, folks. Kakeru Tanegawa of Japan had a brilliant 14.75 on this piece in qualification. He was maybe a touch low there on his landing. He does pick up the pace so wonderfully in those flares. Nice execution of the air flare element. And then that brilliant manner position, the V position that he goes into where his nose just disappears into his knees. He really does show such central flexibility. Well, I think we could be in for a fairly marvellous men's all-around competition here based on the start, based on these floor exercises. Super displays from everyone that we've seen so far. We've got just one to go, even Stredovic of the Russian Federation. This is scintillating first rotation from the men.
Rings, Azerbaijan, Ivan Tikhonov.
Every time that Kakeru Tanegawa, who is after all just 20, steps onto the field of play, the expectation increases. And that's a very exciting thing ahead of the Olympic Games next year. It's also a tough thing for such a young man to handle, but all the signs so far is that he is handling it so very well. And any of you who are fans of the sport and really watch it on a regular basis, you'll know the strength in Japanese men's gymnastics. They know it very well indeed. They were incredibly excited yesterday, those Japanese fans. They were waiting for a taxi back into the centre of the city after the competition, and they were just absolutely buzzing about what they'd seen over the last couple of days. Unsurprisingly, double team gold. Hikaru Tanagawa scores 14.2, so he is down by 0.5 and a little bit more from the qualification mark. Ivan Stredovic of the Russian Federation. 6th strongest overall, but he's got ground he could make up on the first two pieces. He was a 13.85 on floor, 12.35 on pommel horse. So very much one to watch over these first couple of rotations. Managed to bring that under control nicely because the line was going a touch. One of the things that Ivan Stredovic has got is an Olympic medal. Evidence there on the back of his neck, shoulder blades, that tattoo. He was a team silver medalist at the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. Carries with it the experience he's accumulated over the years as a competitor. And the ability to grind his way through a very long competition. He'll know very well indeed this is not about what you do solely in this first rotation. It's not about getting off to a very good start. You've got to be incredibly consistent and minimise the opportunity for error. He did that well in that first routine. If he can pick something up from his qualification mark, then it could be fascinating, because he was strongest in the second half of the competition. Very strong in the second half of the competition in qualification. So any gain here for Stredovic will do, and he's got a gain. Just over a 10th, Stredovic has a score of 14. And that brings to a close our first rotation in this men's all-around competition at Napoli 2019. We still have 5 to go, of course. And this is a chance to look back at the work of Kirill Prokopiev of the Russian Federation. And this was a marvellous, marvellous routine. Did take a bronze medal on the floor in the Russian Championships very recently. He just has such superb stability, and then suddenly this pickup of pace is glorious. His placement of the hand so deliberate, and those wonderful extra flourishes. Just so much going on in that close control work on the mat. Had just a tiny moment of adjustment on his final tumbling pass, but otherwise it was a routine of exceptional fluidity and real crispness. Thoroughly impressive from Kirill Prokopiev, and his score was 14.8, and that the single strongest mark that we've had so far in the competition. Top group making their way onto the pommel horse, and Prokopiev will be first to go. Kazumikaya will sit and wait. He was very strong on the pommel horse in qualification. 14.8 was his mark. These are the gymnasts who will be attempting the still rings, the second group. And in that second group, very good displays from Lee Jun-hyo on the pommel horse. He scored a 14.35, one of the best marks that we've had so far in the competition as a whole.
Please assist us by placing all unwanted rubbish and waste items in the bins provided.
Otherwise, it's very much a case of the top group leading the way as expected. So these are the standings at the moment. Well, they're not the standings at the moment. They look a little bit like the standings at the moment, but I'll tell you what they are anyway. It's Kirill Prokopiev in first place with 14.8. Kazumikaya is in second place, 14.45. Lee Jun-hyo of the Republic of Korea, 14.35. He's in the second group and produced that excellent mark on the pommel horse. And then it's Lee Chi-kai in fourth position, 14.25. Takeru Tanagawa in fifth place, 14.2. Andrea Russo, sixth place, 14.05. So the only gymnast of the top group of 6 qualifiers who's not in the top 6 at the moment is Ivan Stretovic, the Russian, with a score of 14. But it's all nice and close and tight at the moment. But one thing is for certain, and that is Kirill Prokopiev has given himself a fabulous chance with his first display.
Rings, Italy, Stefano Patron.
A lot of interest, as you'd expect from Italian television, to cover Stefano Patron, this 20-year-old gymnast from Venice. And he's been getting a lot of attention with his work in the Serie A competition. And he was recently the top performer on the still rings in the domestic league here. Holds that handstand really nicely. Dismounts well with a small sideways diagonal step on his landing, but Patron scored 13.6 for this in qualification. If he can make an advance on that, then all is well, because he has made a good improvement already from his 12.5 on the pommel horse to a 13.1. So it's all about making incremental gains in this sort of a competition. Those of you who've been watching all arounds for some time will know exactly why we're scrutinising the data so heavily at the moment. It's because sometimes you pick up little data trends early on in a competition. You can see that somebody is starting to make a chase away from the second group and break into that top group of gymnasts. And who knows, maybe Stefano Patron is going to be in a position to do that. 13.2 is his score on the still ring, so he's lost a little by the standards of his 13.6 in qualifying, but he's still up overall by a few tenths, Stefano Patron. That's really all you can ask of a gymnast in the all-around. Kirill Prokopiev has just concluded his pommel horse routine, but we will bring you that in a short while.
France, Antoine Borello.
First opportunity for us to have a look at some of the gymnasts from the third group competing. And it was a very brief look indeed. Hope you enjoyed it. It was Antoine Borello who's now taking his run up. Our attention has popped across to the pommel horse, where Andrea Russo is about to compete. Russo levelled his score from the qualification on floor, 14.05. And this is an apparatus where he's got some hopes of advancing. He was only 13.05 in qualification. Like a large number of Italian gymnasts, he'll be so very much looking forward to the still rings, where Italy traditionally excel. Just waiting on that score for Kirill Prokopiev to come in. It's taken a bit of time to get some of these scores in. And now to Andrea Russo. A little bit of leg separation right at the start, but he's covered it nicely. He started with some decent clearance of the pommels. This Russian turned rather into a leapfrog. Travelling forward in the Magyar skill, backwards in the Shivado. Uses some good core strength to get into his dismount. Now, will that advance beyond the 13.05? That's the look of somebody who's not entirely sure about it. Difficulty in that routine is not enormously high. Perhaps his extension, the toe point, is a little bit lacking that precision. Doubtless the judges will pick up on that. He didn't look entirely satisfied, Andrea Russo, at the conclusion of that routine. So this is his big chance, really, to pick up marks from the qualification performance. Not sure that he's done it. 12.75, so he's actually lost a couple of tenths, a few tenths, in fact. Now, this is his world, his domain. And at the moment, he very much is ruling the roost. Asian Games gold, Universiade gold a couple of years ago. Lee Chi-kai on the pommel horse. It's always a treat.
Rings, Brazil, Luis Borba.
And he's just got wonderful clearance over the handles. Superb rapid flares. There's good difficulty assigned to each of these. Has to vary the work, has to put something else in, which he does momentarily. Still travelling well, forwards and backwards in the flares. Keeping his pace going. He's not giving the judges a great deal to take away at all. Oh, come along now. What a remarkable dismount that was from Lee Chi-kai. Super. And he's having quite a competition. Just never felt for a second watching that he was going to come off the apparatus, that he was going to collide with the handles. Just seemed in full control. He's got really good clearance. There's very little for the judges to make their execution deductions for. Quietly confident I've got to think they'll be quietly confident with what he's doing today. Yes, he's got his weakest pieces to come in terms of the still rings and the horizontal bar, particularly the final piece. He's going to need a bit of a cushion going into the final rotation because his horizontal bar work is not enormously complex. And there is a little cushion provided, 15.225. He's actually managed to increase by about a tenth from the qualification mark. Brilliant from Lee Chi-kai. Now to Kakeru Tanigawa. He's ever so slightly playing catch-up with himself in terms of the mark versus the qualification scores. He's in 5th position at the end of the first rotation. Only got a 13.05 for this piece in qualification. It's not his most fluid work, that's for sure. There's a lot happening. He's getting decent clearance on the flares. Pace is really picking up a touch now. Maybe just a little bit piked in some of that work. Well, that's going to be really interesting to see the sort of score that comes in for Kakeru Tanigawa here. He doesn't have the rapidness and fluidity of the likes of Lee Chi-kai when he's performing those flares, but he does have a lot happening in the routine. It is a complex display. A little bit of contact on the pommels. There, a pretty clear brush with the back of the thigh. Maybe just a touch untidy as he motored round into his dismount. From an execution standpoint, not at all as clean as Lee Chi-kai's. Just a reminder, 13.05 for him in qualification. He was the second best performer overall. So this very much the piece where he will aspire to make up a fair amount of ground. A little bit of discussion going on about the extent to which he's done that. I think they're having a little play around with working out the difficulty. Those of you who are new to gymnastics, the difficulty starts from 0. It's calculated upwards by the difficulty judges. And then the execution judges, they start from 10 and take marks off for everything they see that is imprecise in some capacity. And any of you out there that are watching this that are gymnastics judges, you know just how hard that is, how quickly you've got to work to do it. They are some of the most incredibly capable officials in all of sport, gymnastics judges, because of the pace they have to go at. They're not sitting there staring at video replays for an extensive amount of time. They're making a judgment based on what they see and getting it right. And you have to say, by and large, they do get it right. They do have a superior jury there to help them if necessary, if an appeal is made. An appeal can only be made about the difficulty, not the execution. Coaches have to get all their paperwork in order to have that taken into consideration. They look pretty clear about the scoring. They've made their decisions in the crowd. This is quite a key weight for Kakeru Tanigawa. Still to come, we have the women's competition. That'll be starting at 6:30 p.m. local time, and we'll very much be focusing on that in greater detail in due course, because that is poised to be a fascinating one. It's not as much of a gap at the top of the leaderboard after qualification in the women's competition. A little bit closer. They really are making Kakeru Tanegawa wait. Going to be worth the wait? That's very much the question.
Pommel horse, Russia, Ivan Stretovic.
13.425 for Kakeru Tanegawa, so he's gained about 4/10 from qualification. Now, is that going to be enough, considering that he lost 0.5 from the floor exercise? There is confirmation. The execution, 7.825. Judges found quite a bit to take away in terms of his performance. And now we head to Ivan Stretovic. Russian gymnast got a 14 with his floor exercise. He was in 7th position coming into this rotation, having been the 6th strongest qualifier. Touch piked in his Magyar coming forwards, a little bit low, in danger of striking the edge of the apparatus. It's a danger that he circumnavigated nicely, and that's a good display from Stretovic. He was only at 12.35 in qualifying on the pommel horse, easily his weakest display. By having managed to keep on the pommel horse throughout the duration of the routine, he's avoided that full mark deduction. And consequently, he might well have picked up a little bit of ground. And the reminder about Stretovic is that he is particularly strong in the latter half of the competition. If you look at his scores in the first 3 pieces in qualifying, 13.85, 12.35, 13.45, and then he was all in the low to mid 14s for vault, parallel bars and horizontal bars. So could be one that makes a late sprint for the podium, Stretovic. And that is going to help enormously. 14.075. Increase of not far off 2 full marks for Ivan Stretovic. Let's keep an eye on him, and let's keep an eye on him. Kazuma Kaya, top qualifier. Placed 2nd behind Kirill Prokopiev after the first rotation. And this was an excellent piece for Kaya in qualifying. 14.8 was his score. He gave precious little away. Needs to do the same here. Always good at keeping such a nice straight body. Doesn't bend too much in the middle. Keeps his toes well pointed. Absolutely together in the Russian vendor swing. And again, those heels are clicked and pressed together. Now he builds some difficulty and builds it nicely with those flares. Stylish, well executed. Splendid. Very good once again from Kazuma Kaya. And it's consistency, isn't it, from him that is so very impressive. He has been a team world champion. That was back in Glasgow in 2015. What's so interesting is watching his all-around performances get better and better. And he's got a really good lower body in a lot of his travelling work on the pommel horse. Keeps his toes pointed, his feet together. And then when he goes into the flares, the extension is lovely. He gets real clearance from the handles. It's another display that will delight the coaches, another that doesn't give the judges a huge amount of execution deductions to worry about. Gymnast will shortly move around to the next rotation. Brings us to the 1/3 mark of the competition. 14.6 with a 6.1 difficulty score for Kazuma Kaya. That's within touching distance of his qualification mark, which was 14.8. Now, a look back at the pommel horse work of the leader after the first rotation, Kirill Prokopiev of the Russian Federation. He scored a 13 for this in qualification. This is his chance to really make a big increase in marks.
Vault, Martino Morosi, Switzerland.
He's getting some nice work going with these flares. Just has to watch that he doesn't brush the handles. Yes, it seemed like he was just starting to have problems with the rhythm, and he's come off.
Warm-up rings and vault 3 minutes. 3 minuti agli anelli.
Closer and closer a gymnast gets to striking the handles, the harder it is to then pick the body back up afterwards. Well, Kirill Prokopiev ended up with a score of 12.55 for that routine, so actually losing almost half a mark from his qualification performance. He's the gymnast that will be working on the rings in the third rotation. It is the top group of gymnasts, so that's where we're going to keep our attention focused. In terms of the current standings, it is Li Chi-kai of Chinese Taipei who's ahead. 29.475 is his score. Kazuma Kaya in second place, 29.05. Lee Jung-hyo of the Republic of Korea is still well positioned. He's in third place. Ivan Stretovic, fourth. Kakeru Tanagawa, fifth. So those are the top five. Kirill Prokopiev has dropped down into seventh place by virtue of his issues. Well, there are some challenges coming from the second group, and that challenge really is being led by Lee Jung-hyo. And Lee Jung-hyo is going to be vaulting next, so he's got the chance to further put pressure on the lead. The top group of gymnasts won't vault until the fourth rotation, as is customary for those working in the Olympic order. Seeing the gymnast from Australia, Michael Tone, having his warm-up on the parallel bars. That's the third group of gymnasts who made their start on the still rings. Enthusiastic crowd gathered here today. The word has rather spread about Italy's performance in the women's team competition. There are people filing in now to get a seat for the final stages of this men's competition, and also to be ready for the start of the women's all-around event that will be taking place at 6:30 p.m. local time. So you'll have the chance to pop the kettle on, have a spot of breakfast, lunch or dinner, whatever time of day you're watching this during, and some of you I'm sure are watching it at entirely strange times of the day and night just to be part of the action here at this Universiade, and it is wonderful to have your company for that. Hopefully there's sufficient excitement in this competition to really keep you up, keep you awake if you are watching in the early hours somewhere in a far-flung corner of the world. It's going to be a fascinating battle between this top group. And the gymnast who gets things underway on the still rings for the top group is Andrea Russo. And this is a piece he does particularly well. It was his finest piece at the World Championships last year in Doha. Top planche was nicely stabilised. Little adjustment going into the handstand, but not a great deal. It's come out nicely into the iron cross position. A little overarched on the handstand work. Well, it's always such a popular piece for a live crowd, the still rings. It's something that actually a lot of people feel looks far more interesting and exciting to watch when you're live in the venue, when you can really appreciate the height of the apparatus and you really can see from a distance exactly how stable these gymnasts are. And unsurprisingly, with Andrea Russo getting things moving, it draws quite a strong reaction from the crowd. Extraordinary strength work. Italy, very much a nation that's been excelling on this piece in recent years. Marco Laudadio is very much the athlete who has kind of taken the standard and carried it forward. And the rest are following.
Parallel bars, Switzerland, Martino Morosi.
He's been waiting for an opportunity like this for some time, Andrea Russo. He gets a 14 on the rings. It's a little bit of an advancement, not quite by a tenth from his qualification mark. But he's doing the right things so far in this final. As is this gymnast, Lee Chi-kai. Here is the athlete who leads after the second rotation. And the caveat here is that this is not one of his strongest pieces. This is one about keeping those errors to the bare minimum, those deductions low. This nice split planche held well. His handstand needs a little adjustment, which he has done. Maybe just a touch loose in the swing, didn't really make the lower body quite as precise as it might have been. Made his dismount pretty precise though, Lee Chi-kai. 13.3 was his score in qualification for this piece, his second weakest score. He certainly, though, has the potential to pick up marks in his display on the parallel bars as well. That was where he was a really good performer in qualification.
Korea
has made the most of what he's done so far, Lee, with his excellent floor routine, his superb pommel horse display. He's put himself in as strong a position as he can. Evidently troubled by a shoulder injury. To produce that kind of strength when battling that.
Parallel bars, France, Antoine
That's all you need to know about gymnasts. Reaction from the Chinese Taipei delegation and the coaching staff is going from muted and quietly confident to very excited as this is going on. 13.15 Just down by a tenth and a half from the qualification mark. But not a huge change. Takeru Tanikawa, the second strongest in qualification overall. Only in 5th position coming into this third rotation. So nice and stable Maltese cross. As is that. A really nice 90-degree angle going on. The toe point on the strength work. Jonassen into the Yamawaki. Very discreet and distinct and nice looking. Super handstand. That really is a treat. At one less so. Quick adjustment needed. And managed. And steady, very steady on his dismount. Takeru Tanikawa had a 13.95 for this piece in qualification. Has he managed any form of advance on his marks? He does look to be in a fair amount of discomfort once again. That was the case in the team competition when he landed from the still rings. Extraordinary shoulder flexibility. So much pressure going on the lower body into that dismount. If you are carrying any kind of small injury, it's only going to be intensified by that sort of a landing with such steadiness. It was very nice work. And it was better work than qualification, 14.05. He's gained a tenth. He's still hobbling a touch. Even Stretovic next to compete. Stretovic has really put himself into contention by virtue of his first couple of routines. He's in 4th place overall. Does really make a display of moving into that straddle position. Well, this is very interesting indeed to see. Even Stretovic, who has come back to international attention and international competition after having some bad injury problems following Rio. Actually had surgery on his wrist after Rio. And he's put himself into a position of prominence right here in the Pala Vesuvio. He was so focused on reaching the European Championships in Szczecin. Doing that, making his way into an apparatus final, it just gave him that sense of, I'm back, I belong, and where I should be. And he's performing like it now. Well, he's going to cause some problems for the top 3 gymnasts. He might well become one of the top 3 gymnasts in a short while. This has been a really good first half of the competition for Stretovic. Can't really state that strongly enough. 13.6.
Rings, Japan, Kazuma Kaya.
Now we'll see Kazuma Kaya. Kaya approaches this rotation in second position behind Lee Chi-kai, but in the knowledge that Lee has had his very strongest piece already. But actually, get the sense he'll be now starting to worry Kaya about some other gymnasts who are beneath him, or maybe he won't be worrying at all about it. He probably won't. He'll just be thinking solely about what he has to do. 14.3 for this in qualifying. Lovely Yamawaki-Jonassen combination, and the opening up of the fingers just adds a touch of style to the routine. Wonderful once more from Kazuma Kaya. His consistency continues to enthrall. And it may well come down to that, because at the moment he looks like a gymnast who is not going to make some form of big error. Now that's a dreadful prophecy to make in an all-around competition, but he certainly has that feel about him. There's just such solidity to everything that he is delivering. Where will Kaya find himself positioned at the conclusion of this rotation? Has he made any advances on his still ring score from qualifying? It was 14.3 in qualification.
Russia, Kirill Prokopov.
We'll come back and give you an update on that score for Kazuma Kaya in a short while. But let us now turn our attentions to Kirill Prokopiev. Set the pace, was leading after the first rotation, then had an unintentional dismount from the pommel horse, dropped down to 7th. Now what?
Parallel bars, France, Kylian Mermet.
Brings that handstand to a stable point nicely. Now his campaign seems to be back on track now. Kirill Prokopiev. But there's a lot of ground to catch up on some of the other competitors. He can be very pleased with what he's produced, but most certainly he's playing catch-up just a touch. He's a little bit diagonal armed in the iron cross. The 25-year-old, though, justifiably pretty pleased with that performance on the still rings. has already experienced being a champion at the Universiade on the floor exercise. And that was back in 2017. And he's certainly going to be a real favourite to do the same again by virtue of just how good his qualification performance was on the floor. 15.1, the only gymnast to score above 15. Now, Kazumakaya, 14.6, a gain of 0.3. That will be good enough for the advantage over Lee Chi-kai. No doubt about that. Kirill Prokopiev is waiting for his score to come in. So as soon as we've got this scoring for Kirill Prokopiev, we can bring you the standings. And this is the halfway point of the competition. Those of you just switching on your TV and joining the action here at Napoli 2019, we are halfway through the men's all-around final in artistic gymnastics at the 30th Summer Universiade. The score, 13.4 for Kirill Prokopiev. Just a look back at some of the action that's been taking place during this rotation and the vaulting work of Stefano Patron. Patron, the second Italian gymnast, positioned 14th coming into this rotation. And vaulting nicely, sort of vault that might well give him the chance to move a little bit higher in the leaderboard. Good opportunity for him to make some improvements. It was his strongest in the qualification campaign, 14.75. Did have a very good floor routine as well, 14.25, and that's going to be how he concludes his campaign. So he's worth a watch for trying to push up into that top 10. Good distance away from the table, good height, good line. A lot to enjoy about his work. Stefano Patron, 13.85 his score. So quite a bit down from what he delivered in the qualification. And that means that at this stage of proceedings, it is Kazumakaya who's got the lead, 43.65, a good gap of 1.025 over Lee Chi-kai. Lee Jung-hyo of the Republic of Korea is really positioned impressively, 42.6 for him. Then it is Kakeru Tanagawa, Ivan Stredovic, and Vladislav Hriko of Ukraine is also lurking around the top. And what we just have to bear in mind about some of those gymnasts from the second group is we're now going to see the top group take to the vault, and they therefore have the chance just to bring their marks up a little bit. What is worth noting about Ivan Stredovic, who was the 6th strongest in qualifying, is that he has gained 2 marks from what he produced at this halfway mark in qualification. So Stredovic has been the gymnast who's actually made the most gain in terms of his qualification. So whether that will translate to getting close to the podium, well, your guess is as good as mine there, because we still have a lot to come, and the top group will conclude on the horizontal bar, where there are, as you would imagine, many opportunities for things to go very right and very wrong. Clear that he is enjoying the experience immensely, Stefano Patron. And indeed, they are enjoying the experience immensely. I hope you are too, watching the action at home. Olli Hogben here in the Pala Vesuvio. in the Ponticelli district of Naples, the easternmost quarter of this coastal city. And there is still so much more Napoli 2019 gymnastics action to come. We've got the women's all-round final to come later on in the day, and then all of the apparatus finals, all 10 of them, taking place tomorrow. It's going to be a very busy and enjoyable day of artistic gymnastics. Then there'll be a short break in the gymnastics programme of a few days. And when we get to the 11th of July, then it's going to be time for the rhythmic gymnastics to take centre stage. It will be 3 days of rhythmic gymnastics action. To the vault, and Lee Chi-kai. Just had a little loss of stability, has got a lot of support on the right knee. Just seemed to crumple very slightly as he was landing that vault.
Horizontal bar.
Scored a 14.7 for his vault in qualifying. We'll just take the 0.1 penalty for the step out of bounds. It often looks, if you're a new viewer of the sport, a lot worse than it actually is when the gymnast takes just a small step out on the landing. He's such a popular gymnast. He's so loved and respected in Chinese Taipei. 14.225 is his score. So he's lost around about half a mark from qualifying. Kakeru Tanegawa is the next gymnast to go. Now, he got a 13.6 for his vault in qualification, was still the second strongest overall. Is this a big opportunity for Tanegawa to make up some ground? The 20-year-old from Juntendo University, Jundai, one of the oldest universities in Japan. Oh, he did well. He did really well to pull that back up from near sitting. I think he's feeling it a little bit. Here's Tanegawa. I think if my ability to lip-read Japanese is still there, I do believe he said, all seem to whisper itai, it hurts, he's in a little bit of pain. I wouldn't trust me too much on that. Japanese is a touch rusty now. Very nearly went back to sitting. And he's just clutching that foot, that ankle a touch. Watch this space. Suspect that he's made quite a bit of ground up, though, in terms of his qualification mark. All he has, 14.35 compared to a 13.6 in qualifying. That's going to be an interesting one to look at when we get to the end of this rotation. Ivan Stretovic. Now we enter the stage of the competition that really favours him. He'll finish on the horizontal bar, where he really does excel. 14.4 in qualifying for his vault. And that's going to be a good one too. Played himself very much into contention. Ivan Stretovic, a gymnast who's increasing in confidence and quality every time we have the chance to watch him. 6 years old, back home in Novosibirsk. He saw a gymnastics competition on television. Just turned around and said, right, I want to do that now. And I'm sure there are some of you watching this and thinking the same. Any young people who are inspired by the work of these gymnasts, do it. Get out there and find your local club. You never know what will happen. Could find yourself competing at an international competition one day. And even if you're significantly older than that, there is some form of gymnastics for absolutely everyone. And Stretovic scores 14.4, exactly as he delivered in qualification. It's one of the great things that's developing about the sport of gymnastics, is there's so much there for all ages now. Kazumakaya, 14 in vault qualification. Very nicely done. He did take a few little adjustment paces on his landing. But one suspects he will be reasonably confident about that work. He was the silver medalist at those All-Japan Championships in April behind Kakeru Tanagawa. All that not of great significance at the moment because he's ahead of him here. All that matters is what happens on the day. Looked that it was an exceptionally stable landing, and then he just had those couple of paces. Some 10th deductions to be applied for those. Still might be that Kaya's got a little bit of a gain in terms of his qualification performance. And that's the nod of a head of a man who's quite happy with that score, 14.3. So he's picked up a third of a mark. Kirill Prokopiev was a 14.5 in qualifying for vault. He's taken a fairly hefty step outside of the tram lines. We've seen some good vaulting, though, from these gymnasts. Everyone's held their own. And in fact, what's been such a joy to see across the board in this final is the top group have been very steady. We've seen precious little in terms of unintentional dismounts. We've seen very little hemorrhaged in marks. They really have delivered a steady and sustained performance, and that is how you win all-around competition. Oh, it's been a lot of fun. It could come down to very small things. That was a small thing, but it will cost to a degree. 14.1 the score for Prokopiev with that 0.1 penalty, so down by 4/10 from qualification. Now to Andrea Russo. Also scored a 13.65 for this in qualifying, and he's done well to hold that because he was a touch piked approaching his landing, but he made the footwork very steady indeed. And they are loving watching this 22-year-old from Rome compete. He was due to be part of the Youth Olympic Games in 2014. Unfortunately, couldn't participate due to injury. He had a very interesting sporting background as a young child. He actually started as a swimmer and then made the switch across to artistic gymnastics when he was 7. There are a lot of sports clubs in Italy that are multi-sport clubs. They're very common around Europe to have institutions that allow athletes actually when they're very young and part of that club to switch between the disciplines. Indeed make entire leaps from one sport to another, and Russo very much a beneficiary of that. 13.75, he picks up a 10th from qualification. Might not be an enormous gain, the sort of gain he needs, Russo. He was 7th coming into this stage. Did pick up a couple of places from after the previous rotation. All of the first group have concluded their vaulting, and as you would expect, we still have more action to take place across some of the other pieces of apparatus. Gives us the opportunity to have a look at some of the other gymnasts who are competing in the second and third groups. And just a point of clarification or a reminder, we are in the 4th rotation, so 2 more still to come. Ivan Tikhonov of Azerbaijan is waiting the opportunity to take to the horizontal bar.
parallel bars. Korea, Yoo Lee.
Now, this is an interesting gymnast for us to catch up with. First opportunity that we've had to look at Lee Jung-hyo of the Republic of Korea. 9th strongest in qualification. 3rd place coming into this rotation. He has really played himself into a very strong position. Can he now deliver on the parallel bars? He scored a 13.9 for it in qualifying. It's good distance as he travels. No issues at all with his handstand work, nor there. It's all sharp and precise.
Horizontal bar.
Time just had the tiniest adjustment.
Azerbaijani Valentikov.
Lovely height, lovely clearance. Well, he really is contending at the moment, Lee Jung-hyo. 21-year-old from Seoul. He hasn't done an awful lot in terms of international competition. But a couple of years ago in the Asian Championships, he was 4th in the all-around. He was also a team silver medalist. So it wouldn't be an enormous surprise if he produces a contending display. So the question now is going to be if he's managed to pick anything up. It's going to be certainly an ask to pick something up from 13.9, but he might have done it, and indeed he has. 14.15, he's doing all the right things, Lee Jung-hyo, in this competition. Most impressive indeed from this gymnast. First opportunity for us to see Su Pingqian of Chinese Taipei coming in as a reserve for this final. Marco Walter of Switzerland had to withdraw. So a good opportunity for this gymnast. He was in 14th position moving into this rotation. A little bit of a slam down on the bars. He's done well. He's made the most of being in this all-around competition, considering his qualification performance. Looks set to finish well beyond that. Much to enjoy and to smile about. 24-year-old is a student at the National Taiwan Normal University, which is an institution that initially had a focus on the training of teachers. That's what the normal actually means there. But it's expanded to do an awful lot more since then. It's got about 17,000 students. And he has teammates also that study there, such as Tang Chia-hung. .75 is his score.
Horizontal bar, Ukraine, Vladislav Riko. Parallel bars, Italy, Stefano Padron.
Always a warm reception for Stefano Patron. And he now competes on the parallel bars. This was not one of his strongest pieces in the qualification. 13.25. Nice and clean so far. Not work of most enormous complexity, but work of nice execution. Very assured, bringing the feet into handstand position. That was a touch on the wild side, perhaps. But what he does really nicely. And that idea of crispness of execution, especially when you're just a 20-year-old gymnast, well, that's very important. The fundamentals are most clearly there for Stefano Patron. That's why he's proving so valuable in the domestic league, in his team competitions. His teammates watching on Marco Saluggerio, who's not participating in this all-around competition. They had a very good day, Italy, in the team event. 4th place. It was always going to be a very tall order for Italy to get into medal contention with the strength of teams above them. Ended up only just shy of a couple of marks away from the Russian Federation. 166.5 Russian Federation, 164.925 for Italy, so very close they were. And it's a score of 14 for Patron on the parallel bars. He's made a big increase of not actually that far away from a whole mark. Good 0.8 or so of improvement.
Horizontal bar, France, Kylian Mermet. Parallel bars, Korea, Seung-min Lee.
Lee Seung-min of the Republic of Korea to compete on the parallel bars. If you've been with us the whole time, you will have seen his teammate Lee Jung-hyo do extremely good work on this piece and do extremely good work across the competition. For Lee, 15th place coming into this rotation. He's just 18. Any of you who watched the Zhaoqing World Challenge Cup back in May will have seen him take the silver on the parallel bars. It's really the first time we saw him internationally. It was a very enjoyable view because he's a very promising gymnast. Should have a little bit of stability to do in that handstand, which he did nicely, and slightly tentative coming into the dismount. He's in the competition because Kim Han-sol, who was 11th strongest in qualification, withdrew. And that suddenly meant there was space for Lee Seung-min. Otherwise, he would have been excluded by virtue of being the 3rd highest performer of the Republic of Korea gymnasts. He was 19th best overall in qualification. .458 is his score. Quite close to the qualification mark, which was 13.6. First opportunity for us to see the horizontal bar in action. That's where the top group will conclude their attempt to secure all-around glory. This is Martino Morosi, the gymnast from Switzerland, was expecting to take part in this competition alongside Marco Walter, the more experienced competitor, but has ended up as the only Swiss gymnast in this final, courtesy of Walter's withdrawal.
Horizontal bar, Switzerland, Martino Morosi.
So Martino Morosi of Switzerland competes on the horizontal bar, gets nice height going into his Yamawaki. Very good into the Kachev. The straddle Kachev that time, he's really getting good clearance, it's technically precise. To work quite hard to build his pace back up. It maybe has just dropped off a touch. Very enjoyable routine. Only 19, the gymnast from the beautiful small town of Blenio, right in the south of the country, getting close to the Italian border. The vast majority of inhabitants of Blenio are native speakers of Italian, so he'll be very much comfortable and at home in Naples. Morosi.
Fourth rotation is over.
And he's just starting to get into the picture nationally in terms of collecting medals at national championship level.
Change the apparatus.
I think he can be very pleased with how he's acquitted himself in this competition. Came in as the 18th strongest performer in qualification, Morosi. He was performing a little above that, just by a couple of places at the end of the last rotation. Though sometimes that is mitigated by gymnasts higher up in qualification not actually being able to participate because of the Noah's Ark rule of two from one nation being the maximum you can have. But nonetheless, he's held his own, particularly around some much more experienced individuals. We are getting to the key point of the competition now. Parallel bars and horizontal bar remaining for the top group. .13.4 is the score for Morosi on the horizontal bar, quite close to his 13.55 from qualifying. And this is a look back at a gymnast who's rather been creeping up on people. He was in 6th position coming into this rotation, Vladislav Hriko of Ukraine. Gymnast who was only the 15th strongest in qualifying. So interesting to see just what he can deliver on this piece. Performed well in qualifying, 13.45, and he's got some nice amplitude in the Kachev. He's having a very good final indeed, the 22-year-old from Ukraine. Gymnast who studies for a degree in health studies and physical education at the Kharkiv State Academy of Physical Education. Says that one of his great inspirations, as you'd expect from a Ukrainian gymnast, is Oleg Vernyayev. And so he will know a thing or two, will Hriko, about how you go from a lower position in qualification to in contention in an all-around final, having watched Vernyayev at the European Games, who was, I believe, 8th after qualification and went away with a silver medal. So his hero set an example of how it can be done. 13.3 is his score. on the horizontal bar, and that is where we currently are, moving into the next rotation. And these are the standings after the fourth rotation. Kazuma leads the way. Lee Chi-kai second place by 1.1. Lee Jung-hyo is still in the mix, the gymnast from the Republic of Korea. Stretovic is definitely lurking. Kakeru Tanegawa 56.025 as we look our way down the order. There's a bit of a gap, there's real daylight between 5th and 6th position. And that's maybe where a natural cut-off point is starting to occur. Kakeru Tanegawa 56.025, Milad Karimi 54.9. So it's on to the parallel bars. And this is the 5th rotation, the penultimate rotation. These are the gymnasts who are currently working their way on the horizontal bar. Milad Karimi interesting to watch, and Lee Jung-hyo.
Stop warm-up floor and the horizontal bar. Floor, Australia, Michael Ton. Horizontal bar, Kazakhstan, Milad Karimi.
If you're just joining the action, great to have your company as this men's all-around final at Napoli 2019 reaches decision time. Milad Karimi competing on the horizontal bar. This is an important performance to watch because Karimi has quietly gone about playing himself into some contention. He's in 6th position going into this rotation. And he's cleanly through that first difficult release and catch. There's the Kovac, and it's good. Everything is good so far. 14.25 for this in qualifying. It was one of his best pieces. It's very nicely done indeed. Well, this is interesting. Milad Karimi. Are we going to see him make a late charge for the podium places? 22-year-old from Almaty. He's had a long, tough journey back from serious injury. He's a very inspirational character, actually, Karimi. His first coach, a gentleman called Tahir Razvanovic, trained him for free when he saw him in the crowd at his cousin's gymnastics competition. So Karimi had come along to watch his cousin compete, and apparently he was out there in the crowd. He was tumbling around, he wouldn't sit down. And kindly old Tahir Razvanovic came over and said, OK, let's put this to the test. I'm going to train you, and I won't charge you anything for it. And turned out to work very well. So there you go. Message to all children out there: being disobedient does pay dividends. No, only joking. But he certainly has put incredible application. He's a thoroughly focused gymnast. And he did win the all-around at the Kazakhstan Cup earlier this year, Karimi.
Floor, Azerbaijan, Ivan Tikhonov.
14 for Karimi. I think he was hoping for more than that. He certainly was hoping for more than that. He did get more than that in qualifying, 14.25. Still has floor to come where he was very strong. So we shall see.
Horizontal bar, Yoon Hyo Lee, Korea.
Now this is a massive routine coming up. for Lee Jung-hyo, because he scored 12.35 for this in qualifying. This overwhelmingly his weakest display. And a reminder, 9th in qualification, currently sitting in the bronze medal position. So just get through this with cleanliness. And he's in the chase. Kachev, before that the Yamawaki, were absolutely fine. It's not hugely powerful, but he does get the straddle Kachev with the grip variation. So there's some variety to his work. Very interesting indeed, this from Lee Jung-hyo. Very interesting, because he has impressively gone about picking up marks quietly throughout this final. And it's time to really take notice of the 21-year-old from Seoul. He's been waiting for this big breakthrough all-around moment. This could well be it. Now, what kind of improvement has he managed to register as we head across to the parallel bars?
Floor.
This is the top group, even Stredovic. Well, we're definitely seeing some real competition coming from the second group for these leading gymnasts after qualification. That always makes things a lot more exciting as an all-round final reaches its conclusion. 13.3 for Lee Jung-hyo. He's picked up virtually a full mark from his performance in qualification. Wow, what a story. Now, even Stredovic had a 14.4 for this in qualifying. This is where he's very good indeed. Clean, clear handstands. Diamondov had a lovely, sharp stop to it to really accentuate the move, and his dismount was well accentuated too. So Stredovic is most definitely in the chase. He was in 4th place coming into this rotation and might well have the potential here to leapfrog Lee Jung-hyo, because there is a gap of around about 7/10 between these two. And with Lee having just picked up a 13.3 on the parallel bar, or rather on the horizontal bar, you'd expect Stredovic now to make up that ground on the parallel bars. In terms of the numbers, they do look a touch tricky for Lee Jung-hyo. He's going to finish on floor. Meanwhile, Stredovic is going to finish on the horizontal bar, so he might just well get pushed out of this race. Stredovic scores 14.25. So he's quite close to the qualification mark. Ivan Stredovic. Now to Kazumakaya.
Parallel bars, Japan, Kazumakaya. Floor, France, Kylian Mermet.
Kaya scored 14.45 in qualification. That's the gymnast that's been leading the way for a few rotations now.
Horizontal bar. Stefano
Seems to be getting rather into his stride. There have been some great challenges to Kazuma Kaya, but he might well be doing enough to see them off. He's really performed with such reliability throughout this final. What he's given away from an execution standpoint is ever so minimal. Very, very good display. Extra touch of difficulty that comes from the gymnast working just on the single bar. Not much to write home about in terms of problems with that dismount either. Very big score. Kazuma Kaya, 15.05. And he had a 14.45 in qualification, so that could be a really key performance in terms of opening up a further gap on the chasing pack. It's all about putting himself into a position where he's got the opportunity to give things away in the horizontal bar. So we go to Kirill Prokopiev. Prokopiev only scored 13 for this in qualifying.
Horizontal bar, Korea, Sengumi Lee.
He was very secure indeed. Prokopiev, who was the 5th best performer in the qualification process. Part of the team that took the bronze medal a couple of days ago.
Floor, Switzerland, Martino Morosi.
Prokopiev, as he approached this rotation, finding himself in 8th place. May just be that that display on the pommel horse, where he's got a 12.55, was what has precluded him from having any realistic chance of challenging for a medal. Good crowd gathered here in the Palo Vesuvio to enjoy this competition. 13.475 is what Prokopiev is enjoying. It is an improvement from his mark in qualification.
Parallel bars, Italy, Andrea Russo.
Just the one performance left on the parallel bars. Andrea Russo. Russo has come into this competition with a bit of a fight on his hands just to keep up to pace with this pack.
Brazil, Luis Porto.
It's such a strong group of top gymnasts, and it's been difficult for Russo to hold his own. He's coming into the rotation in 9th place. A little bit of difficulty. He's sailed through those waters quite nicely. And whatever it happens in terms of a final position for Andrea Russo, he really has made himself thoroughly popular to the crowd. He's delivered a very fierce display in this final. He's not been overawed by the challenge of having some top names around him. It's really good to see when a home gymnast does everything they possibly can to keep pace with a group that it's very difficult to keep pace with. Russo scores 13.6 for his display on the parallel bar, so he's down a little bit by almost half a mark from his qualification performance. Still to come for Russo, though, is the horizontal bar. That was his real showpiece display in qualifying. 14.25 what he scored.
Parallel bars, Chi Kai Lee, Chinese Taipei.
Here comes Lee Chi Kai on the parallel bars. Did perform very well on this in qualification. This is where he's going to need something very big indeed. Current position is second, but there is such a small gap between him and a lot of chasing gymnasts. More for him perhaps about holding silver rather than realistically pushing Kaya for gold. But we'll see. It's got very much his weakest piece to come in the next rotation. This is good. Did have to adjust and reset his position a little in the handstand before the big arch of the body. He does get a good journey down the bars. He really has been so engrossing to watch Lee Chi Kai in this competition. Very interesting indeed. His pommel horse routine was an absolute treat. Floor routine was a significant improvement from the qualifying score. But he's up against a gymnast who's so strong across all of the pieces, and that's the real thing with Kazuma Kaya.
Ready for change.
Doesn't have a weak apparatus to speak of. Lee Lee just trying to create as much of a cushion as possible, moving into his work on the horizontal bar to finish off the competition.
Cambio d'attrezzo.
13.85 is the score for Lee Chi-kai, 14.4 in qualifying, so a little bit of ground that he's lost there. We're going to take a moment to have a look at the other Italian competitor, Stefano Patron, on the horizontal bar, and then it will be time to give you an update on the standings. Does very well indeed. Not, by his own admission, his strongest piece, and I think that's why he's so pleased with that display, because he still has his best work to come on the floor exercise. .25 is the score for Stefano Patron, and he's gained half a mark from qualifying. Very positive indeed. Very positive indeed is the situation for Kazuma Kaya. He's well out in front, a gap of over 2 marks over Kakeru Tanegawa in second place. There's not much between Tanegawa and Lee, but Lee will be looking very nervously over his shoulder at even Stretovic, who's about to perform on the horizontal bar and really does excel at this. Lee Jun-kyo has dropped down out of medal contention for the time being, and he will have to finish his campaign on the floor. And these are the gymnasts further down the order. There is still quite a bit of a gap between Lee in 5th place and Milad Karimi in 6th position. So we have most definitely still got a 5-way fight on for 3 medals. Lee is the only gymnast, realistically speaking, from this second group who can contend for a medal. As we have a chance to look at the gymnasts who are taking to the pommel horse. But this is where the competition is going to be concluded. And what's really key is we've got even Stretovic, who starts on this piece. This is one of his very finest pieces. He won the horizontal bar in his comeback from injury at the Voronin Cup back in December. And then we also have Kazuma Kaya, who has got such a heavy advantage, he can afford to come off the piece probably a couple of times. And that is of real significance. He's given himself that cushion of marks. So you'd have to think if Kaya stays on, Kaya wins it. I'm sure that's what they're saying too. Just saw Antoine Borrello, who was warming up on the pommel horse, gymnast who's studying for a master's degree in physiotherapy at a well-known university in France called the University of Nice Sophia Antipoli. Part of the group of French universities that is known as the Coordination of French Research Intensive Universities. It's a sort of degree of parity with the Russell Group in the United Kingdom. So here is Ivan Stretovic on the horizontal bar. This is his big chase now for a medal. He does excel at this piece. He's got some difficult work to come. Starts with his pirouettes, moves into his Yamawaki. Big snap into a high Kachev, and there's another. From straddle Kachev to straight Kachev with cross hand grip. He linked the two well. There's another. And the grip variation once again. That is a really good piece of work from Ivan Stretovic, and it might be good enough to get him onto the Universiade podium. And Stretovic, he did all of his hard work in that first half of the competition, where he picked up massive marks. Just a recap, for those of you who are watching that first bit of the competition, Stretovic gained 2 marks over the first 3 pieces compared to his qualification display. And all of that has put him into a position where now he's attacked this high bar routine with such proficiency that it might well be enough to displace Li Chi-kai. I think it would be enough to displace Li Chi-kai just from a difficulty standpoint. I'm not sure the numbers add up pleasantly for the gymnast from Chinese Taipei. They certainly add up very well indeed for Kazuma Kaya. We'll come back to him in due course, but we're going to find out just how good this was from Stretovic and what sort of a cushion he's built up over Li Chi-kai. Certainly can expect that this is going to be a big score indeed from Stretovic, or for Stretovic. What we're going to know after each of these gymnasts has performed is very clearly whether they're in or out of medal contention, because we're now at the stage where we know that even Stretovic is in the gold medal position. That is by virtue of his 14.05 score. So Stretovic leads. Now to Kazuma Kaya, and just to give a sense of perspective, Kaya is chasing a gap of only 11.375. There are still other performers who are going to challenge him further to come. But if he stays on, you'd think he wins. Does he stay on? Yes, he does. And he does that time too. It's lovely fluidity, shoulder joint flexibility. Here we go, here's the moment. Must be enough. Surely it will be enough for Kazuma Kaya, who's been the male gymnast of this competition. Here at the Universiade, he has utterly set the standard. He was magnificent in the team competition He has been magnificent today. And he will almost certainly find himself at the top of the leaderboard with everyone else chasing. And he can sit back and know that the number they have to chase is going to be extremely hard to overcome. May well not even be possible. Quietly confident that that is going to be enough. So now he waits, Kazuma-Kaya, the silver medalist at the All Japan Japanese Championships back in April.
Floor, Italy, Stefano Patron.
Just a chance now to see Stefano Patron of Italy concluding his campaign. This was his best work outside of the vault in qualifying with 14.25.
Horizontal dive, Russia, Kirill Prokopov. Pamela Holmes, Switzerland, Martino Morosi.
Conclusion of Stefano Patron's campaign. The young gymnast from Venice has done himself proud in front of the home crowd. Certainly encouraging signs for the future for him. Hoping to see him out and about in the World Cup circuit a little more in the year ahead. He's got some nice technique to his work. Just had to adjust a touch on his dismount. Kazuma-Kaya with a score of 14. And that means he goes into the gold medal position. So it's Kazuma-Kaya in first position. Ivan Stredovic is in second place. Big gap, 2.625, the distance at the moment between the gold and silver. Kirill Prokopiev has just performed his horizontal bar routine. Prokopiev coming into this rotation in 7th place, so with a pretty tall order. There was a gap of almost 5 marks between him and Kaya. Tough for him to get into medal contention meaningfully. It's feasible for a gymnast to go into a medal position in this final rotation, but to know they're not really going to last in that position. There was, for example, a moment several minutes ago where Ivan Tikhonov of Azerbaijan was leading the way, top of the standings. That's solely because he was effectively the first to get a score in this final rotation.
Floor, Korea, Seung-min Lee.
Patron completing his campaign with a 13.05 on floor. Now back we go with the focus very firmly on this top group of gymnasts. We wait for Andrea Russo. Russo was a good performer with 14.25 on this piece in qualifying. That's the thing that he did best of all.
Horizontal bar, Andrea Russo, Italia.
So here goes Andrea Russo. A little bit close to the bar as he managed to catch that Yamawaki. Judged that one nicely, and that too. Both of those moves, for those of you learning a bit more about the sport, they're called Kachevs, as is that, named after Alexander Kachev, and there are variations of the same theme. Depends on the leg position. It's all much of a muchness in terms of the overall name of the move. Does get a really nice bit of height into his dismount, so powerfully, just slightly lost his stability coming into the landing, but it really has been a fine display from Andrea Russo. He's been up against some big names and he's performed well indeed. Whether he can stay close to that top six, that's going to be a tough ask for him. But if he manages to do that, that's very fine work indeed. He was the 7th strongest in qualification, but effectively 6th because we don't have Wataru Tanegawa in the final, who was the 3rd best qualifier. Amazing, it was a Japan 1-2-3 in qualification. Cross hand grip adds a touch of difficulty to the work.
Female horse, Michael Ton, Australia.
The medal mark at the moment is a score of 82.45. So it's 82.45 that gets you onto a podium. 87 is the leading score. Lee Jung-hyo of the Republic of Korea is occupying that bronze medal position at the moment. Ivan Stretovic holds silver. Kazumikaya holds gold and is likely to hold on to it for some time. What can this gentleman produce on the horizontal bar? And so the weight goes on for Andrea Russo. When it comes to Lee Chi-kai, the big question is whether he has the difficulty on the horizontal bar to keep Ivan Stretovic at bay. 13.65 for Russo, and that positions him 4th in the overall standings. So still Kaya, Stretovic, Lee. But what of this Lee? Now, Lee Chi-kai has been there or thereabouts in terms of the podium. He's not been out of it since the end of the first rotation. He did lead after the second, but this was the piece he scored 12.44 in qualification. Well, he's certainly given it everything that he has. There's no doubt about it. Whether it's enough, We shall find out, but he has given it everything. He's certainly going to be a favourite, the favourite, to retain his pommel horse title from his home country a couple of years ago. We still have to come the performance of Kakeru Tanegawa, and that's very important in terms of the overall standings, because from Lee Chi-kai's point of view, he doesn't want to be in the bronze medal position at the conclusion of this routine. He wants to be above Stretovic. The question is whether the numbers stack up for Lee Chi-kai. .675 is the sort of number that he's going to be looking at in order to make his way beyond even Stretovic, get into that silver medal position. And he got a 12.4 in qualifying. I wonder if she knows something that we don't. Yes, it is very much anxiety time. How close has he got? He has got close. 13.25 for Lee Chi-kai. So he's in the bronze medal position, but he hasn't quite done enough to go ahead of Stretovic. He needed an extra 4/10 and then a little bit more. Didn't quite happen. Still, he might be able to secure something. It all depends on the work of this individual, Kakeru Tanegawa. Oh, and he's come off. Oh, goodness me, how he has come off. Thoroughly unexpected, just didn't get anything like the kind of cleanliness with that release and catch as we saw in qualification. Now this has suddenly made things very interesting indeed, because Kakeru Tanegawa needs 13.075 and beyond in order to get onto the podium. Suddenly even Stretovic is feeling a touch more relieved. But Tanegawa had 14.625 in qualification. So he might well be able to sacrifice that full mark. It's all going to get absolutely fascinating. Every 10th is going to count. Hasn't given away much there. He's obviously feeling some pain. He's obviously struggling physically. That foot is really causing him some problems. Now, the 20-year-old from Chiba Prefecture finishes his campaign unexpectedly with the loss of contact to the bar early on. Got back up and certainly delivered a compelling rest of the routine. Is it a good enough rest of the routine? Kaya first place, Stretovic second place, Lee Chi-kai third place. Just reliving the moment and why it didn't quite happen. The reigning Japanese all-around champion Kakeru Tanegawa, an unexpected moment as he comes off the horizontal bar. It is absolutely guaranteed as a Japanese gold. And that gold for Kazuma Kaya. Stredovic and Lee Chi-kai are going to be sitting and watching and waiting nervously to see just how much Tanegawa has lost. And those numbers again, 14.625 his qualification score, and a 13.075 and beyond needed to impose himself on the podium. I'll leave that with you watching at home. It's feasible, but he could just miss out. The thing is, you don't always get the difficulty if you don't complete it. The execution isn't there, then you can't be awarded the difficulty as a result. It's going to be close. It is going to be close. Well, we have a most engrossing finish to this competition. We are all on tenterhooks, awaiting the score of Kakeru Tanegawa. He needs 13.075. Has he got it? He hasn't. 12.85. The score for Tanegawa. He's in fourth position. And as a result of that, confirmation of the gold for his teammate Kazuma Kaya. A score of 87 for him. Even Stredovic of the Russian Federation. Brilliant work from him to go from being the sixth strongest in qualifying to taking the silver medal, and Lee Chi-kai of Chinese Taipei holding on to take a bronze medal in dramatic circumstances. Kakeru Tanegawa finishing in fourth position. Incredible drama. The conclusion of this men's all-around final at the Universiade. Goodness me, it delivered, and goodness me, he delivered. Kazuma Kaya, he was the favourite, and he showed just why. I will leave you just to enjoy a few moments looking back on this men's all-around final, and then it will be time in a few minutes or so for the victory ceremony in the men's all-around competition at Napoli 2019. There is confirmation of the final standings. The bronze to Lee Chi-kai of Chinese Taipei, the silver to Ivan Stredovic of the Russian Federation, the gold to Kazuma Kaya of Japan.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will present the medal ceremony in 5 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the medal awarding ceremony for all-around final artistic gymnastic men. Signore e signori, la cerimonia di premiazione per la finale all-around di ginnastica artistica maschile.
It's now time for the victory ceremony for the men's all-around competition in artistic gymnastics at the 30th Summer Universiade, taking place in the city of Naples. And here at the Pala Vesuvio, in the Ponticelli Quarter, we were treated to an absolutely nerve-wracking and gripping all-around competition.
We are now going to begin the awarding of the medals. Sta per iniziare la consegna delle medaglie. The medals will be presented by Mr. Kairat Zakirianov, International University Sport Federation Executive Committee member, and the mascot will be presented by Mr. Rosario Pitton, Vice President Italian Gymnastic Federation. Le medaglie saranno consegnate da Mr. Kairat Zakirianov, membro del comitato esecutivo della Federazione Internazionale Sport Universitari, e la mascotte sarà consegnata da Rosario Pitton, vicepresidente della Federazione Ginnastica d'Italia.
Introduction of the presentation party for this men's all-around artistic gymnastics presentation.
Third place and the bronze medalist Qingkai Li, Chinese Taipei.
Bronze medal to Li Qikai of Chinese Taipei. Superb competition from him. He had a lot to try to hold on to going into the final rotation. He had to increase the quality of his horizontal bar work. He did exactly that. And by just enough to stay on the podium. He's emerging as a great all-around gymnast. And here in Naples, it's the bronze medal for Li Qikai.
Second place and the silver medalist Ivan Stretovic, Russia.
This was quite something from Ivan Sredovic, sixth strongest in qualification, supported by other members of the Russian team. He's earned his place on this podium. Team bronze, now individual silver. And he really did deliver, particularly in the first half of the competition where there was so much ground that he could make up. Make it up, he did. All of these things will give him so much belief. The silver medal to Ivan Sredovic of the Russian Federation.
First place and the gold medalist, Kazuma Kaya, Japan.
Well, put simply, this was his competition. In the qualification process, in the team final, he looked absolutely unbeatable. And you know what? He was. Marvellous display. A gap of not far off 3 marks between first and second place. Consistency is the name of the game, but sometimes consistency can be rather a dull word. This was excellence. This was high quality across every single piece. He wasn't solid, he was spectacular. The gold medal to Japan's Kazuma Kaya. Becomes the first Japanese man for 10 years since Yosuke Hoshi to win this men's all-around competition at the Universiade.
Ladies and gentlemen, and now please rise for the International University Sports Federation and team. And now it's time for pictures. E ora diamo spazio.
And there they are, the medalists in the men's all-around competition in artistic gymnastics at Napoli 2019. Well, it gave us everything that we hoped it would. All-around finals. They are marathons, not sprints. And he paced himself just right. Kazuma Kaya will return to participate in apparatus finals tomorrow. Would you want to take him on? And so that brings to a close our session of artistic gymnastics from the Pala Vesuvio in Naples. We will return in a couple of hours. That's at 6:30 p.m. local time for the women's competition. But until then, we'll leave you with some images of the great enjoyment, the spectacular entertainment of the men's all-around competition in artistic gymnastics at the 30th Summer Universiade. Until then, goodbye.